They laughed at him. They called him the candy boy, mocked his simple clothes, the sweat on his forehead, the way he held the box of sweets as if it were his greatest treasure. But he smiled. Before anyone could imagine, that smile hid something few could understand. Determination. Each step through the dark streets, each improvised sale, each coin in his pocket was more than money. It was faith in a future no one else could see. While the sun burned his skin, he felt something few ever feel so early. The certainty that success is not luck, but effort. He wasn't selling candies, he was selling dreams, wrapped in colorful paper and packaged with courage. And there, among looks of disdain, something invisible to others was growing. A boy on the verge of turning laughter into applause. The days were long. The fatigue was heavy, but the boy kept going. Each note he received became a step upward, each street corner a lesson. Life, to him, was a school without walls, and he learned quickly. He learned that dignity is not measured by the clothes you wear, but by the honesty with which you face each day. Years later, when he no longer carried candies but ideas, that same boy, now a man, still remembered the sound of the laughter, not with resentment, but with gratitude, because it was that laughter that taught him never to give up. It was that laughter that pushed him forward, that ignited the fire of perseverance. And so, the candy boy became the man of fulfilled dreams. And when he stepped onto the stage of his own victory, he looked at the audience and, for an instant, seemed to hear the laughter of the past once again, but now echoing his applause. Each note he received was a stone, but he never let it block his path. He gathered each one by one, and without realizing it, built with them the road that would take him further. He learned from every rejection, observing gestures, studying glances, deciphering the silence of people. In every curt word, he saw an opportunity to understand others, to shape himself, to grow. Without knowing it, that street boy was learning what would later be called the skills of an entrepreneur. When it rained, he covered his box of candies with an old, worn piece of plastic. The drops hit his face like small challenges, and the cold seemed to mock his courage. Still, he kept going. Even when water ran over the sweets, he never thought of giving up, because, to him, giving up was a luxury for those who had never felt hunger. He knew that those who want to go far must endure hardship, not for pleasure, but to understand the value of victory. Every step on the wet sidewalks, every smile earned through effort, became a life lesson. He discovered that true learning wasn't in books, but in the streets, in the no's, in the glances, in the days when exhaustion weighed more than hope. And without realizing it, that boy was planting something greater than dreams. Seeds of greatness, seeds that would sprout in silence, watered by sweat, faith, and the will to change his life. One day, the world would see the fruit of it all and understand that the success of that man began right there, among colorful candies, steady steps, and the courage to never stop. No one saw it, but he was growing. He grew in the silence of the street corners, in the noise of the cars, in the nights when sleep gave way to dreams. Each customer, each comment, each rejection, everything turned into invisible strength. While others saw only a boy selling candies, he saw a field of learning. He learned to sell, to listen, to understand what people wanted long before he even knew what marketing, business, or strategy meant. A man in a suit once laughed at him. "You should be in school, not on the street." The boy simply smiled and replied, with the calm of someone who already knew what he wanted, "One day, I'll open my own factory." It wasn't bravado. He said it with the certainty of someone holding a precious secret. That sentence stayed in his mind like a secret map drawn with dreams and sweat. He had no notebooks, but he wrote down life's lessons in his memory. Every no became motivation, every humiliation, a reminder that no one defines the size of a dream except the one who dreams it. He learned early that pain, when turned into fuel, becomes strength, and that true strength is the kind that makes no noise. It was this silent, almost invisible energy that kept him going when everything seemed to fall apart. While the world laughed, he built brick by brick, rejection by rejection. He raised a wall of determination, a wall that would protect him from discouragement, doubt, and the voices that tried to convince him he couldn't. No one saw it, but he was growing. He grew from within, where success begins, and there, in the heart of that candy boy, something was born that would one day cease to be just a dream and become inspiration. He grew up, but the world seemed harsher than ever. The streets were still the same, only he had changed. The candy boy was now a young man with calloused hands and a determined gaze. He worked in bakeries, snack bars, confectionaries, anywhere that brought him closer to chocolate, that flavor he had associated with dreams since childhood, while others merely completed their shifts, he observed. He studied every movement, every mixture, every precise gesture of those who shaped the sweets. He learned in silence, copying with his eyes, storing in memory what he would one day put into practice. Sometimes he stayed up all night, testing combinations with the few ingredients he could take home. Other times, he gave up his own meals to save money and buy more chocolate, more sugar, more hope. But he never gave up, because he knew the world closes doors, but doors aren't walls. And doors, no matter how heavy, open for those who persist, for those who push every day with patience and courage. Each fall made him stronger. Each no taught him to say not yet. Life was training him to endure, and he endured. He learned that success doesn't arrive suddenly. It is built in the late nights, in the sacrifices, in the attempts no one sees. He didn't just want to survive, he wanted to leave a mark, to prove that origins don't define destiny, that those who persist can turn what once seemed impossible into reality. And even if no one else believed, he did. He believed so deeply that faith became his driving force. Deep down, he knew that all the fatigue, all the loneliness, and all the accumulated effort were preparing him for something greater, something the world was not yet able to imagine, but that he could already feel beating in his heart. With the savings he had, set aside from hard work, sweaty coins, crumpled bills, the fruit of long and silent days, he bought his first ingredients. They were simple: cocoa, milk, sugar, and an immense desire to succeed. In his small kitchen, with old pots and borrowed utensils, his first homemade chocolates were born. They weren't perfect, but they had soul. Each piece carried the flavor of perseverance and the sincere touch of someone who poured his heart into everything he did. He started selling to neighbors, co-workers, and acquaintances. Some bought out of pity, others out of curiosity, and many only to mock him later. He heard the laughter, felt the skeptical looks, but turned it all into fuel. Each sale was a quiet victory, each mistake a valuable lesson. He learned that failure is not the end, but an invitation to try again with more wisdom. He reinvested every penny. He traded rest for study, leisure for experiments. He changed recipes, tested flavors, improvised packaging with whatever he had at hand. Little by little, what had begun as a hobby started to take shape, rhythm, and purpose. The small childhood dream was transforming before the eyes of a few and the faith of one into a business. He didn't have modern machines, but he had vision. He saw beyond the chocolate. He saw a future where his creations would cross borders, inspire people, and prove that perseverance can be sweeter than any ingredient. Every bar that left his kitchen carried more than sugar and cocoa. It carried hope, courage, and the promise of a grand tomorrow. It was the reflection of a boy who never gave up, who traded the shame of the streets for the dignity of effort. Because, deep down, he never just sold sweets, he created opportunities for himself, for his story, to prove to the world that when work is done with purpose, even the simplest dream can turn into an empire of faith and flavor. The late nights became his best companions. While the world slept, he awakened his dreams. In the dim light of his small kitchen, the sound of chocolate melting in old pans was like a melody of hope. He mixed flavors, tested combinations, made mistakes, started over, and even when exhaustion weighed on his eyes and his body begged for rest, his heart insisted on continuing. Every drop of sweat was an investment. Every sleepless night, a brick in the construction of his future. His calloused hands spoke for him. They worked in silence, but dreamed loudly. Sometimes, the weight of doubt knocked on the door. Am I on the right path? But all it took was remembering the boy who once sold candies on the corners. Clutching the box to his chest with eyes full of faith for the flame of determination to burn again. He understood early on that courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward in spite of it. That great dreams demand sacrifice, and that every effort, no matter how small, has the power to move mountains when done with purpose. The nights became his battlefield, the chocolate his silent weapon, and the fire his most faithful ally. Few believed, but in the solitude of those cold hours, he was shaping not only chocolates, but his very destiny. And so, day after day, through mistakes, successes, and countless new beginnings, he paved the road that would one day lead him to recognition. A road built on persistence, patience, and faith. Until, finally, the time would come when no one would laugh at him anymore because the world that once mocked the candy boy would learn to savor the sweetness of his victory. The path was never easy. Bills piled up on the table like cruel reminders of reality, and sales barely covered the basics. Many times, he faced painful choices: to eat or to buy ingredients, to rest or to produce one more batch. His body begged for a break, but his mind wouldn't allow it. There was a dream to sustain. Exhaustion followed him like a shadow, and doubts visited him often, whispering that maybe it would be better to give up. But he learned, between tears and silence, that true strength reveals itself when no one is watching. In those moments when the world feels distant and the heart is on the verge of giving in, then a simple memory brought back his spirit, the voice of an old lady, a former customer, who once told him with sweetness and conviction, "Don't lose hope, boy. It's what keeps us standing." In that moment, he understood faith is the most powerful weapon anyone can have. Not blind faith, but the kind born from persistence, the one that rises from the ashes and keeps believing even when everything falls apart. And so, even on the darkest days, he kept going. He kept going because he knew that every hardship, every no, every mocking laugh was, in truth, an invisible step toward the top. Each stumble taught him something. Each obstacle prepared him for the future that was quietly taking shape, like the slow melting of the chocolate he loved so much. It was in this way, facing the weight of doubt, turning pain into learning and faith into fuel, that he began to write the story that today inspires thousands, a story that proves it's not destiny that shapes a man, but the courage to never give up, even when everything around him seems to say otherwise. When he decided to open his first small shop, his heart pulsed with excitement. It was the beginning of a new chapter, the childhood dream taking shape, finally gaining an address. But reality arrived hard and fast. High rent, unexpected expenses, planning mistakes, unsold products. The sparkle of the grand opening soon gave way to overdue bills and sleepless nights spent trying to find a way out. 6 months later, the door closed for the last time. The smell of chocolate still lingered in the air, mixed with the bitter taste of failure. Many laughed, others shook their heads in disdain. He'll never make it, but he didn't give up. He cried, yes. He felt the weight of disappointment, shame, and doubt. Yet instead of surrendering, he chose to learn. Each mistake became a mirror, each failure a silent lesson. He realized that failure is not the end, it's the beginning of a new attempt, wiser and stronger. He went back to where it all began, his home kitchen, with fewer resources, but with greater clarity. He began testing recipes with precision, studying customer behavior, rethinking the look of his packaging, and the value of the experience behind each purchase. He understood that the secret wasn't just in the flavor, but in the meaning that chocolate carried the taste of hope, perseverance, and faith. Over time, the orders began to return. One, then another, and then many. What seemed like the end was, in truth, a rebirth. Defeat didn't erase his dreams, it strengthened them. And so, with humility and persistence, the boy who once sold sweets on the streets began to see the seed he had planted in the asphalt sprout. Again, strong and stubborn, breaking through the ground of hardship, he finally understood. Persistence is the most important ingredient for those who dream big, the only one capable of turning failures into steps and dreams into reality. The first online sales began timidly, almost discreetly. One order here, another there, carefully wrapped, sent with hope. He didn't have an elaborate marketing strategy or a team to help him. He had only passion, discipline, and purpose. And, as always, that was enough to begin. Each satisfied customer became a messenger of his story. A share, a compliment, a heartfelt comment, and what had once been a solitary dream began to take on a life of its own. The Candy Boy was now crafting artisanal chocolates that captivated not only for their flavor, but for what they represented: resilience, courage, and love in the form of sweetness. There was no luxury, no scene of instant success. There was work, quiet, constant, genuine. He discovered that life's greatest turning points rarely come with applause. They happen in the late nights of dedication, in the small decisions, in the persistence of those who keep believing, even when no one else does. And it was in that fertile silence that everything began to change. With each bar sent out, with each customer touched, a new part of his story was written, not with ink, but with purpose. What had once been a dream no one believed in was now turning into inspiration. And the world that once laughed at the boy on the street corners was beginning to taste. Through the flavor of his chocolate, that determination is sweeter than any victory, and that no skepticism can withstand the power of someone who never gives up. When he rented a larger warehouse, he felt for the first time the true scale of his effort. The empty space, which once seemed like nothing more than cold concrete, now pulsed with life. The rich smell of melting chocolate, the rhythmic sound of machines, and the constant movement of the team were tangible proof that the boy, who once sold sweets on street corners, had finally built something grand. Each bar of chocolate carried far more than cocoa and sugar. It held memories of the streets, of the cruel nose, of the nights when hunger tightened his stomach, and of the laughter that once wounded his heart. There, among pots, shelves, and carefully wrapped boxes, he realized that success is not a finish line, but a path built step by step, mistake by mistake, tier by tier, with persistence and courage. And in that moment, as he looked at each dedicated employee, at each machine that now transformed dreams into reality, he allowed himself to be moved. The tears in his eyes reflected not only exhaustion, but gratitude and recognition for his own effort. He understood that every sacrifice, every stumble, and every mocking laugh had been an essential piece in the construction of something far greater than chocolate. His story of triumph, that simple warehouse, was not just a physical space. It was the symbol that persistence turns obstacles into steps, and that every dream, when watered with hard work and faith, becomes sweeter than any bar he had ever made. The small factory, humble in its beginnings, carried something no machine could buy, purpose. Among pots, ovens, and makeshift shelves, each bar produced was more than chocolate. It was sweat, dreams, and determination transformed into tangible reality. He remembered the hot streets, the sweat running down his forehead, the laughter that once wounded his heart. Today, those memories were not scars, but fueled. Every obstacle overcome, every no faced, every sleepless night shaped not just the chocolate, but the man who now led an entire team. The public began to notice that his products were more than sweets, they were experiences. Small doses of courage, authenticity, and faith in every bite. He would repeat to his team like a mantra, "We don't sell chocolate. We sell courage in the form of sweetness." And each employee understood the factory was not just a business. It was the materialization of years of silent struggle, of tears, falls, and restarts that no one had seen. It was living proof that consistent effort, combined with purpose and passion, creates something that transcends mere production. It creates a legacy. That boy, who had started with a box of candies on the streets, now showed that well-cultivated persistence transforms lives, builds stories, and leaves marks that no one can erase. Each bar of chocolate was not just flavor, it was memory, victory, and inspiration wrapped in colorful paper. Growth brought challenges he had never faced before. New orders demanded planning, logistics, and full dedication. The trips, meetings, and negotiations consumed his hours. And exhaustion, which he had already known from his days on the streets, returned, now accompanied by greater responsibilities and decisions that affected lives. Over time, he learned that success also comes at a price, and that leading a team is far more complex than creating alone. Every choice carried weight, every mistake could be costly, and every success required vision. Yet, even under pressure, he maintained his unwavering essence. He treated each employee like family, thanked every customer as if they were the first, and never allowed humility to be lost along the way. In moments of extreme fatigue, he remembered the boy who sold candies on the street, holding his box with faith and courage. That memory anchored him. Those who forget their origins lose their way. Every challenge, every difficult decision became a lesson and a source of strength. He discovered that true leadership is born from empathy, respect, and attention to others, not from title or power. And so, by balancing growth with humanity, he understood the legacy he leaves is not just the chocolate he produces, but the example of character, effort, and humanity that inspires everyone around him. With recognition, his story began to spread like a sweet aroma that captivates all the senses. Journalists, TV programs, and social media were enchanted by the boy who had once faced laughter and scorn and who had now built his own empire. He didn't seek fame, he sought to inspire. In every interview, he shared his falls, sleepless nights, the sweat, and the silent struggle that few had witnessed. And the audience was moved. Young people, entrepreneurs, and ordinary people found hope in the journey of the Candy Boy, realizing that dreams can flourish even in the harshest of soils. Every visit, every lecture, every interview was more than publicity. It was an opportunity to teach that success doesn't come from luck, but from faith, effort, and persistence. His factory, once just a workplace, had become a symbol of overcoming obstacles, courage, and love for one's craft. He decided to immortalize this message by engraving a phrase on the main wall. The same hands that once sold candy now create opportunities. Every time he read those words, he felt deep gratitude for the path he had walked, for the hardships that shaped him, and above all, for the chance to illuminate the dreams of others, showing that it is possible to transform sweat and hope into stories that inspire generations. One day, the man in the suit who had once laughed at him reappeared. This time, fate had taken poetic and ironic turns. The skeptic's company was buying chocolates from his factory. The meeting could have been charged with resentment, but he chose serenity. He shook the man's hand and said calmly, "Life is sweet when we learn not to hold on to bitterness. No arrogance, no wounded pride, just peace." Later, watching his employees move about the factory, he realized that winning isn't about humiliating others, but about transforming every challenge, every fall, every no into learning and strength. He had finally proven that true triumph is internal, overcoming fear, pain, and doubt while keeping integrity, faith, and humility intact. It wasn't someone else's approval that defined his victory, but his ability to endure, grow, and inspire. In that moment, he tasted the flavor of real victory. It wasn't just the success of a factory or a recognized brand. It was the certainty that enduring is infinitely more valuable than any external approval, and that the Candy Boy, now a man, had conquered something no one could take away, his own story of courage and perseverance. The factory grew, gained space, recognition, and customers. But he never lost the essence he had carried since his days on the streets. With success, he decided to multiply opportunities. He created social programs, supported small cocoa producers, and taught young people to become entrepreneurs and inspire others. He would tell the children with conviction, "It doesn't matter where you start. What matters is where you decide to go." Every smile, every hopeful glance made all the sleepless nights, all the obstacles, and every tear from the past worthwhile. He understood that true success is not measured by what you accumulate, but by what you share. The boy who once held a box of candies now creates futures, offers opportunities, and shows paths. Seeing a young person land their first job at the factory, he felt the same emotion he had when he sold his first homemade chocolate: pride, gratitude, and the certainty that fighting is always worth it. Cocoa, which began as a simple ingredient, also became a symbol of resilience, hope, and legacy. And in that moment, he realized that his story was not just about chocolate, but about the power of a dream that became a bridge for so many others to achieve theirs. Even with awards, contracts, and national recognition, he never forgot where he came from. He returned to the streets where he had sold his first sweets, to the square where he rested under the scorching sun, to the corners that once laughed at his effort. There, sitting on the same bench as before, gazing at the horizon, he remembered the boy who walked alone with his box of dreams. Every stone on the path, every sleepless night, every cruel laugh now made sense. They were ingredients in the most valuable recipe of his life. He understood that success is measured not only by achievements, but also by remembering one's origins and being grateful for every difficulty that shaped him. In the silence of that memory-filled place, he felt a profound peace. Every effort had been worth it. Every twisted path, every obstacle faced, every tear shed had built a man who now smiled with serenity and conviction. A man ready to inspire others never to give up, showing that the sweetest dreams are born from courage, perseverance, and unwavering faith in oneself. Years later, he stepped onto the stage of a major business event. Hundreds of people waited eagerly, flashes flickered around, and the atmosphere was charged with expectation. He walked in with simplicity, without ostentation, and said naturally, "I am just the boy who sold sweets." A few laughs arose, but they quickly gave way to attentive silence. Every word that left his mouth carried genuine emotion. Every pause was an invitation to reflect. He spoke about his falls, defeats, and sleepless nights, about the corners where people laughed at him, and about the box of sweets that was once his greatest treasure. At the end, he said with conviction, the world will laugh at you before it applauds you. But keep going, persist, because every step, even the quiet ones, builds the victory that no one sees. The audience rose in emotional applause, but he smiled inwardly. He knew that true victory was not in public recognition. It was in the certainty that he never stopped believing in himself, even when no one else did. That boy who once sold sweets had become a man who showed, through his life, that courage, persistence, and faith can turn dreams into reality. Over time, he realized that life had given him more than financial success, it had given him purpose. He invested in small cocoa producers, helped entire families, and created opportunities for young people in vulnerable situations. Each new project was more than work. It was a chance to multiply hope and transform lives. At night, he would walk alone through the factory, running his hands over the shelves, the machines, the chocolate bars, and remember every tear shed, every challenge faced, every laugh that once tried to break his faith. Gratitude filled his heart. Not empty gratitude, but a deep awareness that every pain, every failure, and every act of scorn had prepared him for that moment of fulfillment. Each chocolate bar became more than flavor. It became a symbol of hope, faith, and transformation. And he smiled, calm and silent, knowing that his story, built with sweat and courage, now had the power to make a difference in the lives of others, proving that persistence and purpose are the most valuable ingredients anyone can offer the world. Success is not having a lot, it is being a lot. Being courage, being an example, being a light where there is darkness. He saw many people give up before their breakthrough, but he knew that those who persist achieve something greater, not just personal victory, but inspiration for others. When visiting schools, parks, and communities, he would repeat with conviction, "The world will laugh at you before it respects you." But keep going, because every step brings you closer to the impossible becoming real. The story of the boy who sold sweets became an example of universal perseverance, showing that pain, effort, and persistence have a flavor, the flavor of victory, transformation, and hope that spreads. Every smile from someone tasting his chocolate was more than satisfaction. It was acknowledgement that it is possible to succeed when you believe, and that dreams, even small at first, can grow into legacies that inspire generations. Today, the boy who once sold candies owns one of the largest chocolate factories in the country. Yet he still gets emotional when someone calls him the Candy Boy. He remembers every step, from his first day selling sweets on the street to the machines in his factory, from the laughs that once hurt him to the hands that now create opportunities for hundreds of people. His secret: love, faith, and persistence. Before going to bed, he opens his old notebook and writes, "Thank you, God. Even the laughter helped me win." This notebook, full of yellowed pages, is his greatest treasure. Because every tear, every fall, every challenge became the secret ingredient of his success. And at the end of the day, he smiles. Because he knows that the taste of victory, just like the finest chocolate, is made of patience, effort, courage, and love. And that his entire journey proves that true dreams are built step by step, with unwavering faith and a generous heart.